Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Simi Kenza James. So for our new and old subscribers, you're all welcome to today's tutorial where I'm going to be showing you how to make this really lovely pencil dress, and it's one of the easiest dress you see. So a client came with this really beautiful Chantilly lace for me to make the dress for her. So I have the fabric laid out and I folded it in half. So now the folding is a quarter of her measurement plus 1 inch of my sewing allowance. So I'm going to measure out the length of the dress, which is 42, and I'm measuring exactly the length because I do not need to hem the dress as it has a beautiful scallop design on the hem. So I'm marking 3 inches from the length, which is going to be the shoulder side, and 8 inches half of her shoulder measurement, then 1 inch shoulder slant, which I'm going to be connecting the shoulder slant to the 3 inches neckline. Then I'll just go ahead and rule that. So from that 1 inch shoulder slope, I'll come down by 7 inches, which is half of her armhole measurement. So I'll just go ahead and mark that 7 inches. Then I'll put the same measurement on this other side, but on this side it will be 8 inches because of that shoulder slant difference. So I'll just go ahead and connect that in a straight line. So that will be her chest line eventually. So on the chest line, I will go ahead and mark that 8 inches shoulder as well to enable me square out my neckline, which I did, you can see. So from the shoulder, I will mark her bust measurement, which is 10 inches. So from that bust measurement, I'll move the tape and mark another 10 inches just to enable me draw a straight line from her shoulder to a straight line on that bust side, which is 10 inches, right? So beneath the 10 inches, I'm marking 1 inch, which I'm going to be using in front of the dress for the dart, because I want a front dart which pivot from the side of the bust towards the bust. Then I'll mark her affluence point. So her affluence point, I will add 1 inch to the length of her affluence. Reasons being that I'm adding 1 inch of that, so it's going to affect the measurement. So I'll do the same thing to the hip side. From her mark the distance from her shoulder to her hip, and I'll add 1 inch to that distance measurement because of that which will raise all of those up. So I'll just go ahead and square those lines, and then on the chest line I'll mark a quarter of her bust measurement, which I calculated with using my tape. So I'll mark that and impute that on her bust measurement, like you can see. So on her waist or affluence measurement, I'll go ahead and do the same thing by dividing a quarter of her waist, and I'll mark it on the waist measurement, right?
Quarter of
So
her
mind
waist
you, I've not
measurement
added
here,
any
which
sewing
is around
allowance at this
7.1.
point.
So on
So
the
on the
hip
hip
line, I'll
side as
mark
well, I'll
her
go
hip,
ahead and
a
mark
quarter of her
her
hip
hip
measurement.
measurement, sorry, a
So
quarter
whatever
of
I
her
have
hip
on the hip measurement, I'll
measurement.
take out
Then
one
on the
inch from
hem
it
side,
so
I'll
that the
take
dress
out one
pencils
inch
out
from her hip measurement
on
because
the
I want
hem.
a
That's what
straight
I will
cut
mark.
dress, but let it pencil
So
out just a little
I'll
bit.
connect
So I'll go ahead and use
my
my
lines
French
like
curve,
so.
or my hip curve, sorry. But in this video I'm using my pattern
Sorry,
master, but
from
you
the
can
hip
use
line,
your hip
I'll
curve
just go
if you
ahead
do
and
have that handy.
connect it
So I'll use that to make my curve
using a curve,
nicely, right?
or you can
So
just do
because
that
it's a
by
Chantilly
freehand.
lace, it's a little bit difficult
Then
for me to draw chalk
I'll
marks
connect the
on
hip
it. So that's why you see that
to
I'm
the waist
struggling with it. So I'll connect my
and
waist to my
the
hip,
waist
and then my bust to
to the
my
bust,
hip, to my waist
like
measurement, I
so.
mean. So
Now the
this is
next
what
thing
it's
I'm going
looking
to do
like.
is to
So the
find
next thing I'm going
half
to be
of the
marking now
armhole line.
is a half
So
of
half of the
her
armhole line is
armhole
3.5.
measurement, which
So
was
on that
7
half inch, I'll
inches.
come
I'll
in
mark half of it, which
three
is
quarters of an
3.5.
inch
Then I go
to
in
eradicate
by
excesses on that
three
side.
quarters of
So
an
I'll just
inch.
make a curve
Then I'll
to
connect
the
that to her
bust line,
bust
then connect it
measurement,
here
and then to the nape
like
of the
so.
shoulder,
So that's
which
just
will
for my
enable
regular
me
armhole,
eradicate any fold on
right?
the
So
on
for the neck
her
depth, I'm
the
going to
front
make
of
it
her
4
dress
inches
around the armhole side.
or
So I'm
3.5.
going to
So it's going
mark
to be
3.5
3.5
inches for her neck depth.
by
Then I'll
3,
go ahead
the
and
neck
connect
depth.
it to that 3 inches in a curve, and then I cut my fabric out, adding 1 inch sewing allowance to it. Then I pin down that 1 inch of that, just so I can place the same pattern and cut using the same pattern to cut my back measurement. So for my back measurement, the neck is a bit higher. I just used 1.5 and I left 1 inch of zip allowance on the center back, and these are my panels.
So for the sleeve, I just folded it in half. So I'll mark the sleeve length. I want it to be 22. So I'll mark 22 like so, right? Then I'll mark her cap's height, which is 4 inches like so. Then I'll just make a subtle curve like an S shape to that point. Then I'll mark her half of her bicep measurement plus 1 inch sewing allowance. Mark it like so. Then I'll mark half of her wrist measurement plus sewing allowance like so. Then I'll just connect it like so. So I'll just go ahead and cut out the sleeve.
So for the lining, I have this really stretchy and beautiful Lycra material. So I'll just lay out the front side, and I do not want the lining. I want it to have such sort of like a yoke in front of it. So I'll just cut the lining on the yoke side, right? And I laid out the hem side of the lining also to be shorter than the main lace, and I cut out all my pieces, both my front and my back, and I did the yoke thing at the back as well. And these are my pieces. So for me to sew now, I'm going to be hemming the lining alone. I'm not hemming the lace as well on the yoke side. I'm just hemming that so that it sort of neats on the inside and it has a clean finish. So I'll do the same thing for the two back panels and the front panel as well. Mind you, I'm not touching the lace. I just move the lace. Mind you, I also pinned down all my lace panels to my lining after I was done cutting, so that when I come to sewing, it would not give me that much of a problem. So by the time I was done, I also went ahead to secure my lining and my lace together using a straight stitch, so that I can take out the pin and join my panels together without worrying that the lining piece, which is also a Lycra material and it stretches, I make sure that it doesn't move. Then I went in to mark my darts, and I'm going ahead to sew my darts. You remember it was my side bust dart I marked, so that's the dart I'm sewing, and I'm securing the dart with a knot, and I did the same thing to the other side of the dart, and that is it for the front, right? So now I'm going to do the same thing for the back. Sew along and secure my my lining and my lace together. Then I would come to join my dress, but for now I'm doing the second side of my dart. So this is it. You can see it has a little room for the bust. So on the back of my dress, I just marked 22 inches from the neck downwards. So that would be where I will be inserting my zipper. So from that 22-inch mark, I just used 1 inch sewing allowance, just like I left, to close off the back side of the dress, and left like a 10-inch slit there. Then I went ahead to insert my zipper using my zipper foot, so it was a lot easier. I used an invisible zipper, which turned out to be really beautiful. So in sewing this zipper, make sure you're not drawing anything so it doesn't get wavy. So just let the material go with the flow, but you make sure that your lining points meet each other, so you can see everything is nice. And I closed off the shoulder of both the front and the back panel together like so, right side matching each other. Then I brought the sleeve, and I'm going to be joining the sleeve first. So I made a notch at the center part of the sleeve. So the center part of that sleeve, I ensured that it matches the center part of the shoulder where I made a seam, and I closed that off. Then from the seam, the sleeve, when I was done, I did the other side of the sleeve, and I was done. I just picked up my dress. So from the sleeve, right, I just went ahead to close off the dress, starting from the hem of the sleeve till the armhole, and then overall to the body of the dress. So that is what I'm doing. I'm marking my sleeve opening, and then I'm closing it to, then I ensure that my armhole matches like so, then I sew close. Guys, this is a very fast and an easy dress to make. Even if you're a beginner, it took me less than an hour to make this dress, that's including the cutting and the stitching, guys. So if you're not yet subscribed to my channel up till now, please ensure to subscribe before you leave, and then hit the like button if you find anything helpful here, and please share my video with your friends, guys. So this is the finished look of the dress. If you recreate it, don't forget to tag me. I would love to see your own recreation. And then for the neckline, I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing. I might end up using a bias for that. So see you in my next video, guys.